and especially our Gold Star families. Our hearts go out to the families of those killed and wounded in the past week and the people of Afghanistan. Here at home, the National Guard continues to live up to our promise of always ready, always there. Of the over 56,900 Guard men and women on duty today, more than 6,500 from 11 states are helping their communities respond to the aftermath of Hurricane Ida. In Louisiana alone, more than 5,400 Guard members are working across 31 parishes to save lives and expedite recovery efforts. We're expecting that number to increase over 8,000 by tomorrow. Equipped with more than 175 high water vehicles and 40 helicopters, they're conducting search and rescue sweeps, providing security and support of local law enforcement, establishing distribution locations for people to get food and water, and are clearing roads to allow crews to restore power to over 1 million residents. I've asked Major General Lee Hopkins, Louisiana's Assistant Adjutant General, and Colonel Greg St. Romain, the Louisiana National Guard's 225th Engineer Brigade Commander, to join us remotely. And in a few minutes, they will cover some of the conditions that they're facing there. Hurricane Ida is not the National Guard's only major effort, however. Out west, where nearly 5 million acres have burned so far this year, nearly 1,250 citizen soldiers and airmen are battling wildfires. This includes 3 of our C-130 firefighting aircraft, 16 Black Hawk and Lakota helicopters, and 3 aerial systems that are mapping fire locations. I've asked Major General Dave Baldwin, the Adjutant General of California, and pilots Lieutenant Colonel Chuck Steffens from the Nevada National Guard, and Lieutenant Colonel John Holland from the Wyoming National Guard, both who fly our C-130s equipped with a modular airborne firefighting system, or MAFS, to join us. With respect to COVID operations, over 12,700 Guard men and women continue to support their local hospitals and communities across the nation. In support of Operation Allies Welcome, we're working closely with the State Department, Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Northern Command, and U.S. Transportation Command. Nearly 800 National Guard members are assisting with the relocation of Afghan nationals to 6 sites throughout the country. That's in addition to the air crews and support teams directly involved in the airlift operations. We do all of this and continue to meet every overseas deployment requirement, with more than 17,700 National Guard men and women providing assistance on the ground and in the air to our combatant commanders. As the combat reserve of the Army and the Air Force, we are manned, trained, and equipped to fight our nation's wars. But in times of emergency, those same people, training, and equipment provide us the ability to respond to our communities when they need us most. At this time, I'd like to welcome Major General Lee Hopkins to give us an update on the recovery efforts in Louisiana, and he'll be followed by Major General Dave Baldwin to give us an update on the wildfire situation in California. Lee, over to you.
Thank you very much, General Hokanson, and thank you for the close cooperation and coordination with the NGB staff, with our staffs in Louisiana. It's very helpful. You know, as we look back to 2020, we watched Hurricane Laura impact the state of Louisiana with hurricane winds up to 150 miles per hour. And that was a record that had not been broken back to 1856. And here we are today, almost to the day 1 year later, and we're responding to Hurricane Ida, which matched that same 150 mile per hour wind. So this is definitely one of those situations when the going gets tough, the tough have to get going. So several days prior to our hurricane landfall, our Governor Edwards, and our Adjutant General, Major General Keith Waddell, made the decision to really go all hands on deck. And we mobilized all of our available soldiers and airmen for the response. So, and for the pre-storm response, we kind of followed our playbook. We pre-positioned our search and rescue assets forward. We pushed our engineer route clearance assets to those affected parishes. And then we looked at how our communications assets were flowed across those parishes that were in the projected storm path. And as soon as landfall happened and the winds allowed, all those high water vehicles and helicopters you talked about, we launched them. We were out in 31 parishes conducting search and rescue and looking for the people who were stranded in Louisiana. So far, we've rescued 393 citizens and 60 pets, and we continue making those search and rescue sweeps in the areas where the waters still remain, those flood waters, in support of 4 parishes at this point. We currently have over 400 soldiers and airmen who are conducting security operations in 6 parishes. And as we kind of begin to taper down on our search and rescue missions, we anticipate that our security missions will grow, especially as parishes welcome their citizens back to their homes so they can pick up the pieces after the storm. Our engineers, and I know Colonel Greg St. Romain is on the line to talk, but our engineers began assessing and clearing roads to support those first responders and emergency vehicles so they would have access throughout the areas. To date, they have they have assessed more than 220 miles, and they've cleared 403 miles of road to get debris out of the way to allow that access. Once those roads are cleared, our engineers will transition to working with the parishes to clear governmental buildings and municipal buildings to allow access so they can stand up their government and get back in working order. Engineers have done a lot, but we still have a lot left to do. We just began moving into one of our most manpower intensive missions, which is commodity distribution. During pre-storm, we relocated and moved hundreds of thousands of meals and hundreds of thousands of bottles of water to our regional staging area. We took the pre-storm time to get all of our trucks loaded. We got our convoys lined up, and we were fully prepared prior to the storm coming in, and we hunkered down. Once the storm passed, we immediately pushed those convoys out to establish points of distribution, or as we call them, pods. As of today, we're operating 17 pods in support of 9 parishes, but we know in the coming days that's going to grow to over 40 pods. And we anticipate during this response, we'll hand out millions of bottles of water and millions of meals to support the affected citizens of Louisiana. With that increase in manpower, it's very important that we give a thank you to the EMAC partners that are coming to help. So on behalf of our governor and our adjutant general, I would like to thank the governors and the adjutant generals of those states who are sending EMAC forces to help the citizens of Louisiana. So far, we have currently 15 states that have committed to help and they're on their way, and we have many others that have offered support. So we thank them. These forces did begin arriving yesterday and are coming in today and the next day. And I can tell you they're coming just in time as our missions are increasing. Our soldiers and airmen have been doing remarkably hard work in support of this response, but we have a lot left to do to recover. And our EMAC partners will be a key role in that recovery. And I would like to take a quick moment. General Hokanson talked about the deployed soldiers and airmen. Louisiana currently has 2,400 soldiers and airmen who are deployed. And one of the major units, and the majority of that unit, is the 256 Infantry Brigade, which is the largest unit in the state of Louisiana. We are so extremely proud of all of our soldiers and airmen who are deployed, who are supporting this nation, and the great job that they're doing in that mission. And as a personal note, 16 years ago, I was deployed with the 256 overseas, and we watched Hurricane Katrina barrel in to hit Louisiana. So I want to, let the soldiers and airmen who are deployed know that while they're taking care of their federal mission and serving our nation, we're at home, we've got their backs, and we're going to take care of the home front. And we look forward to their safe return soon. And General Hokanson, thank you so much for inviting us and allowing us to share our story.
General Baldwin, over to you, sir.
Well, good morning, everyone from California. Good afternoon if you're in the East Coast part of the state. Thanks for taking the time to cover the great work that our National Guard and partners are doing across the nation, and particularly here in California as we battle some pretty horrendous wildfires. The fire situation here in California remains pretty dire. We have 16 major fires burning throughout the state. Now that may not seem a lot, 20 or 30 years ago, we'd have many more fires burning, but the significant difference is these fires are huge. As a matter of fact, the fires are making runs of 20 and 30,000 acres per day. And 20 or 30 years ago, a big fire was a 20,000 acre fire that burned for several weeks. But now we're seeing in a single day that kind of massive growth in the big fires that we've got going. The other thing that's happening is the first time I've ever seen it in my career dealing with forest fires is fires will start on the west side of the Sierra and burn up and over the top and into the east side of the Sierra. That's never happened before. The fuel conditions remain pretty bad, and our weather is not conducive for putting these fires out quickly. We currently have over 2,500 soldiers, airmen, and sailors from the Cal Guard that are conducting emergency response operations and law enforcement operations throughout the state. Of those, 1,358 are dedicated to fire support and fire suppression operations. Like Louisiana, we're getting a lot of help from outside states. We have 10 states that have contributed forces, mainly aviation units, to participate and assist us with putting out these fires. We're also getting help from the United States Air Force Reserve. And just last night, we got a battalion from the active Army out of Fort Lewis that's coming in to provide additional Type 2 hand crews for firefighting on the ground. This is particularly critical for us in California because, like Louisiana having their brigade combat team deployed, our aviation brigade from California is currently deployed to the Mideast. So we really appreciate the help from the other states. And I especially am appreciative of Louisiana, who has sent us aviation support and is going to continue to send us aviation support here in California to deal with their fires, with our fires, while concurrently they're dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Ida. So General Hopkins, pass on to General Waddell my deep appreciation for that. That's really awesome. In California, we're providing a broad spectrum of military capability to support fire suppression and consequence management operations. This goes from space-based systems that we're leveraging to boots on the ground, putting out the fires. We have 23 aircraft engaged. That includes water bucket-equipped helicopters, medical evacuation helicopters, the modular airborne firefighting systems that General Hokanson mentioned and that Lieutenant Colonel Stevens and Holland will talk about later, and incident awareness aircraft that include both manned and unmanned surveillance platforms that are assisting with fire mapping and disaster assistance. A note on the medevac: yesterday, our medevac crews out of the 129th Rescue Wing saved a firefighter that was severely burned on the Caldor fire. And it happened to be the very first mission of our newest pararescue men, Senior Airman Keith Hughes, who on his first mission helped save the life of that firefighter and transport him to a burn unit in Sacramento. In addition to the air-breathing aircraft that we have operating on this mission, we're also using satellite systems that we leverage for mapping and disaster assistance. On the ground, we have 25 Cal Guard hand crews from the National Guard and our State Guard, including 9 very elite Type 1 hand crews that we have trained up and are operating year-round now for both fuel reduction and fire suppression activity. We have soldiers that are manning traffic control points in 2 counties, working both the Dixie Fire and the Caldor Fire, and they are helping assist in evacuations and then securing areas that have been evacuated to prevent looters. We're also providing logistics support to CAL FIRE in the form of fuel trucks and warehouse personnel that are helping them move the massive amount of commodities that are required to sustain all the firefighters and supporting personnel working these issues. We anticipate more missions here in California because the fuel conditions remain explosive. The weather is still hot and very, very dry, and it's going to be a problem for some time to come. But we're in this for the long haul, and we're postured. And again, we appreciate all the help that we're getting from our outside partner states. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to take this moment just to allow the 3 other panel members to do a brief introduction, starting with Colonel St. Romain.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm Colonel Greg St. Romain. I'm the 225th Engineer Brigade Commander within the Louisiana Army National Guard. So in regard specifically to Hurricane Ida response, we're in support of search and rescue operations, engineer support, and distribution of commodities. We continue to be versatile and adaptable to this emerging response. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Now over to the Air Force Lieutenant Colonels Holland and Steffens.
Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are in the country. I'm Lieutenant Colonel John Holland from the Wyoming Air National Guard. I've been out here for the last week and a half, flying on a crew with one of our MAFS aircraft. I'm going to rotate out here shortly, and then I'm sure I'll be back out in another week or so. But this is, we can hear outside right now, things are starting to spool up and aircraft are starting to go to work, but happy to be out here and helping with the effort.
Yes, Lieutenant Colonel Chuck Steffens, MAPS pilot. I'm the mission commander that's going to be launching these airplanes out to go out and support our communities.
Thank you, gentlemen. And with that, I would like to take this brief opportunity to remind folks who joined us late that this is an on-the-record event. We are on the record. And being respectful of time, I'd like to ask the media to please stick to one question, and we will allow for additional questions if time permits. If we're unable to address your question, I'll take note of it, and we will try to get you an answer as soon as we can. We are also putting member bios and a fact sheet into the chat window of the Zoom for media to be able to ensure that they have proper spellings of all the participants' names. With that, I'd like to open the floor to questions, starting with Travis Lawler from Associated Press. Are you with us, and do you have a question?
Hi, I'm here. Just a quick clarification. Hopkins, Major General, is that right? Sorry.
Yes,
did you say that the entire Louisiana National Guard was activated or prior to the hurricane? Everyone?
Yes, we took the opportunity to mobilize all available. Of course, we have some who are not available, some of those who are also first responders or are supporting other missions, such as the personnel who are supporting our overseas operations.
Thank you. We'll move on next to NBC, Courtney Cuby or Moshe Gaines. Are one of you on the line? Nothing heard. Moving on next to Stars and Stripes. Rose Thayer, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you for putting this together. I had a question, I guess, both in California and in Louisiana. Can you describe some of the conditions that service members are facing as they're conducting their work? I mean, I'm guessing in California, it's hot and smoky, and then in Louisiana, lots of
Get in the meter.
No.
You have a hot mic. Rose, I'm sorry, please continue.
That's it. Just whoever wants to go first, just to paint a picture for people on what it's like to be doing this.
I think I'd like to offer this up to Colonel St. Romain to start, and then we will shift to California.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, as I continue to move around impacted areas throughout the portions of the south and southeast of Louisiana that were impacted, there's no doubt there's quite a bit of infrastructure damage. A lot of homes that have been damaged. Roadways that were closed off from traffic. But again, I know, we'll likely maybe discuss that in further, but that's where a lot of our route clearance operations have taken place. And, the engineers, including interagency partners, we're working together to clear the routes. So we're allowing vehicles, emergency vehicles to continue to move in some of those impacted areas. Specifically, you're talking about power companies. A lot of power lines are down. So it's a lot of limited traffic ability throughout those areas. But, it's been amazing to see the work everybody's, everyone's working together to clear those routes as efficient and effective as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to go to California now. If General Baldwin or your pilots have some things they can offer about the operating conditions of California?
So I'll defer to the pilots first to let them talk about what it's like flying in these very treacherous aviation conditions.
All right, thank you, sir. Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head. It's pretty hot. It's pretty smoky. Occasionally, the smoke will clear out because the wind will pick up. But when the wind picks up, the fire tends to get up and run and spread quickly, as General Baldwin mentioned earlier. So getting in and out of the different air tanker bases to load the retardant, to make sure that we've got enough fuel on board to get back to the fire, get on scene, and then work quickly enough to stay out in front of the movement of the fire, so that those ground crews can really get to work and try and stand the thing up when they can is pretty key, especially with the Dixie Fire, the Caldor Fire being two of the big ones right now. As they start to move into places where they threaten structures, there's a lot of air assets that are flying on those incidents. And so making sure that we are well coordinated and orchestrated with everybody that's in the airspace to get that effectively dealt with and try to mitigate as best as possible is kind of the picture for us.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Anybody else have anything to add on that question?
Yeah, it's General Baldwin. And then for our troops on the ground, beginning with our hand crews, the Type 1 hand crews are operating in extremely treacherous terrain because a lot of these fires are burning way up high in the Sierra. So it's mountainous terrain. There's a lot of hazards with risk of fallen trees. Because they're working on active fire line, they're often faced with huge walls of flame. The smoke is choking because it's extremely thick, with air quality indexes as high as 400 or however high it goes, they're at it. It's very hot during the day, and this time of year, it gets very cold at night. So temperatures are approaching freezing at night. Our hand crews work 24-hour shifts, which is very, very physically demanding. And it's tough on them. Our security force soldiers are operating in the same conditions where often they're flanked by fire, so they have to be very cognizant of their escape routes. And in addition to dealing with smoke all during the day, they're sleeping outside in tents, so they're exposed to all those hazards. In addition to, for both the hand crews and the security force people having to see all the destruction that's wrought by these fires, because unfortunately we don't get very many damaged buildings in fires. Almost all the buildings are destroyed. And it can be very heart-wrenching to see entire communities like the town of Greenville that's just gone. And that takes a toll also. So, but our soldiers and airmen are taking it all in stride and performing their missions magnificently.
Thank you, sir. General Hopkins, I believe you had a clarification you'd like to add.
Oh, I sure can. I mean, California has hot and smoky. I can tell you Louisiana has hot and humid. And as Colonel St. Romain discussed with the power outages, our soldiers and airmen are operating in austere conditions. But we're doing everything we can to make life as good for them as possible as they serve the citizens of Louisiana. But as General Baldwin said, our soldiers and airmen take it all in stride. Our motto in Louisiana is protect what matters, and they're going to do everything they can to do that. Because it's just what we do in Louisiana and other states, we protect what matters.
Thank you, sir. I've just been made aware, apparently a point of clarification too, that apparently the engineer teams have assessed 2,112 miles of road in areas in Louisiana. Thank you, sir. So we'll move on next to CNN. Ellie Kaufman, are you on the line and do you have a question? Nothing heard. ABC News, Matt Seiler, are you on the line? Do you have a question? Nothing heard. We'll move on to Army Times. Davis Winkie, are you on the line?
Yes, I am, Wayne. Thanks for organizing, putting this together. My question is for mainly General Hokanson, but the other GOs can probably chime in as well. It really sticks out to me, and I'm a guard officer myself, that for both the states most affected right now, the formations that would be most effective in this kind of state mission that is the spirit of the Guard are overseas deployed. And so are we at all concerned about the confluence of these op tempos, the federal op tempo that's been relentless for 2 decades, and then this increasing op tempo of state stuff as climate change seems to increase the frequency and intensity of stuff like these wildfires and like these hurricanes. Are we at all worried about the effects of this cumulative op tempo on the soldiers as these things keep piling up? Thanks.
Hey, David, thanks for the question. And as a guardsman, you're probably aware, as I led off with my statement, is the primary mission of our National Guard is to fight and win our nation's wars, and we're manned, trained, and equipped to do so. And it's those capabilities that allow us the ability to really respond to our communities when they need us most. And so when we look at the 40th Combat Aviation Brigade out of California and the 256th Infantry Brigade Combat Team out of Louisiana being deployed, first and foremost, that's their federal mission, which is most important. The one thing that we do, and we've done previously, particularly with our states most prone to hurricanes, is we have an all hazards conference in the summer. And what we do is we take a look at each of the states and those units that are deployed, and then we really mitigate the risk by identifying units that could fill a lot of the capabilities that they would normally provide. So in this case, with the 256, during that all hazards conference, they identify those capabilities that will be gone as they are right now. And those states then pony up or say, hey, I will provide this capability. And as Lee Hopkins mentioned, those units are en route. They'll get there today and tomorrow and provide that capability just in time. Now, the thing that we've learned about forest fires and wildfires is previously we kind of looked at a wildfire season. It started usually June, July, and went till October. But under the current conditions and the winds and the things that we're facing and the extended drought periods, those fire seasons literally go without end. They start early in the year, they go late into the year. And so it's more of what we call a fire year. And so this is the first year that we've really taken the opportunity, similar to like hurricanes, and we met in March with the National Interagency Fire Center to talk about and really take a similar approach that we do as hurricanes to identify those capabilities. And in most cases, it's not just ground crews, but it's primarily air crews as well. And we identified the fact that the 40th Combat Aviation Brigade out of California would be gone. And so states across the country identified air crews, trained them in advance so that as California needs them, that they can get there in a timely manner to make a difference. And so what we've really learned from this is, we have to do our federal mission. That's the whole reason the Guard exists. But we're also well aware of those natural disasters or recurring disasters we have to be ready for. So we're doing everything we can to look forward, plan for these so that the states still have the capabilities they need in a timely manner. And with that, I'll hand it over to both Lee and Dave to add anything more. Thank you.
General Hokanson, Lee Hopkins here. I can tell you that's exactly on. We always play a role in the All Hazards Conference. This year, we looked at the possibility of having an event while the 256 was deployed, and we planned accordingly to ensure that we had the right assets available to be prepared to roll in. We've taken that plan and we're executing that plan. And as a result, 15 states have committed and they're rolling in to help and more are available if we need it. So again, we planned for this and it worked out, as the plan comes through to help Louisiana.
Yeah, and it's Dave Baldwin from California. So we have historically gone to other states during fire season for rotary wing aircraft support and, of course, MAF support. And General Hokanson's led the way this year in using the hurricane model to prepare even further so we could bring in air crews quickly. So the EMAC model works. However, for California, we do have a problem in that across the nation, there's one National Guardsman for every 47 citizens of the United States. In California, that ratio is 1 to every 147. So our Guard is much smaller than per capita than what the average is across the United States. And we're in a state that is constantly in a state of emergency. So our demand signal is much, much higher. And we do see a strain on the formations that we have to go back to the well to time and time again to respond. So our military police units, our aviation units, our MAFS units, and our combat arms units. So the ones that we constantly are going to deploy. We've had military police companies last year doing non-COVID missions that were on duty, that had soldiers on duty for as many as 150 days out of the year. It's a tremendous strain on the force, and it's something that we're working with both the Congress and the National Guard Bureau to try to address this imbalance in the force ratios of where people are allocated. Frankly, California National Guard needs to be significantly bigger to meet the demands that are required for supporting a population of 40 million people.
Thank you, sir. Lisa Kaplan from Fox News, are you on the line and do you have a question? Nothing heard. Kevin McCarran from CBS, are you on the line? Do you have a question? Nothing heard. CNBC, Amanda Macias, are you on the line? Nothing heard. Caitlin from Defense One, are you online? Nothing heard. Ellen Milheiser from Synopsis, are you online? Okay, is there a reporter on the line here? Angie Semino from KATC News. All right, KRCA News, are you online? Ellen Mitchell from The Hill. Okay, is there anybody else online with a question?
Hi, Wayne. It's Patricia Kime with military.com.
Thank you, Patricia. Go ahead, please.
Yes, there was some discussion earlier this year about restructuring the Guard or at least more manpower. Could I get an update on whether that's going to be a possibility perhaps in the next couple of years, given what General Baldwin just said? What are the thoughts on the right size of the National Guard?
And Patricia, Dan Hokanson here, I'll take the lead on that. So when we look at additional force structure within the National Guard, and this really goes back to the fact that all of our force structure is really designed to fight our nation's wars. And so we work very closely with the service secretaries, in this case, the Secretary of the Air Force and the Secretary of the Army. And we look for opportunities when there's growth in force structure to put that potentially in the National Guard. And I know the service secretaries have to look across all three components of both the Army and the Air Force and determine where the best place is to put that. We think, obviously, because of the ability to respond to our states in a state active duty or Title 32 status, and also for the federal mission under Title 10, that we can really address a myriad of issues. And so we always, of course, want to put our best foot forward to have those growth opportunities stationed in the National Guard.
And if I may ask a follow-up of both General Hopkins and General Baldwin, my first question would be, how long do you anticipate that the response to Ida may actually take? Can you project this far out how long it will take based on what you're seeing on the ground? And then which are the fires that really are the Guard highly concentrated out in California?
Lee Hopkins, I appreciate the question, Patricia. We anticipate by some of the past responses we have, we figure that we're going to be at peak operations for about 2 to 3 weeks. And that will be closely tied into once some of the power is restored to a lot of the communities. But at that point, once we have power restored, we have running water, we have stores open, that will give us the opportunity to begin, right sizing our force so that we're doing the right missions and begin ramping down. This could go as long with a smaller force of another month or 2 months. But again, we peak operation to another 2 to 3 weeks before we see those triggers met that allow us to right size.
Thank you, sir. General Baldwin?
Yeah, so in terms of length of the mission, last year we had soldiers and airmen in California fighting fires on Christmas Eve. So we have many months ahead of us of this. In terms of troop concentrations, we have, if you include the active component, there's probably about a little over 600 soldiers and airmen and sailors on the Dixie Fire, which is now the largest single fire in California history. The largest fire was the August complex from last year, which was over 1 million acres, but that was a complex of several fires. The Dixie Fire is the largest single fire, and it's up over 800,000 acres now. So we have about 600 military personnel on that fire. There's about 300 military personnel on the Caldor fire, and then, which is where most of our effort is. We have most of our effort. The exception is with our MAFs. MAFs are flying on pretty much every fire in Northern California as conditions allow them to drop. They'll launch and hit the Monument Fire, the Antelope Fire, Dixie Fire, or whatever U.S. Forest Service or CAL FIRE needs.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other reporters with a question?
This is Gina Cavallaro with Army Magazine.
Hey, Gina, welcome. Please go ahead.
Apologize, I chimed in a little bit late, but I'd like to follow up on Patricia Kimes' question about the shape of the National Guard. For General Hokanson, I think this is the realignment of the 8 division headquarters with the brigade, combat brigades, to help be ready to look like the active duty Army. Would that new configuration as it takes shape also help in these sorts of responses to domestic emergencies? Thank you.
Eugenia, thank you for that question. And you really hit on one of the founding principles behind this. Number one, we want to make sure that our divisions are structured exactly like those on the active Army, so that when we did this, we went from 10 divisions in the Army to 18 full divisions in the Army when you include the 8 from the National Guard. And when you look at the fact that previously we really were focused at the brigade level of, anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 soldiers, when we align in divisions, we can be up to 15 and sometimes greater than 15,000 soldiers in a single formation. And so what it provides us the capability when we have large scale combat operations, number one, they're trained and ready to do that. But if you look at the response in the homeland, now we actually have a 2-star headquarters with a significant number of personnel and equipment that could respond really as an organization to a large scale event. And so that is one of the sidelights and benefits of this whole organization.
And is that, when do you project that will look the way you want it to look? How long will that take?
So Gina, we're just over our first year into this. We've made a lot of great strides, and it really depends on the level of training and resourcing that we have. But I see probably within the next year or two, and we'll work very closely with the division headquarters to the point where which they feel they've got the relationships and their really lines of communications established well enough that they could operate as a division. And so it's kind of a conditions based, but we're hoping to get that with our first couple of units within the next year or two.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other reporters with a question?
Yeah, Wayne, I've got another line of questions.
Oh, okay, Davis, we've got, go ahead with your question, please.
Okay, this one is about the duty statuses in the respective missions. In the California mission, at least, you've got guardsmen working alongside their Title X counterparts. And in Louisiana, we've got a kind of massive EMAC response. Are these guys and gals in a state active duty status, or is there a way to get them onto Title 32 to ensure that they'll be able to get VA benefits should they be injured in these very hazardous conditions, and maybe accrue some other benefits as well? Thanks.
David, I'll start out, Dan Hokanson, then I hand it off to both Dave and Lee. But when we look at a response under state active duty, they fall under pay and benefits from that specific state under which they're operating. And under an EMAC agreement, if somebody's coming from Mississippi to help Louisiana, they will be under a state active duty status and paid in benefits by the state of Louisiana. And this is unique under the governor's authorities under which they do that. And you kind of contrast this with the COVID mission where we have folks under Title 32, but that's under a federal FEMA mission assignment under which they have been tasked. And so the one thing that we do is we work with the 54 states, territories, and DC to try and at least get the benefits as close to comparable as possible. Some cases they're a little bit less than they would if they're under Title 32 status. In other states, it's actually a better process or a better pay. And I'll hand that off to both Dave Baldwin and Lee Hopkins to talk about their specific scenarios.
Thanks, sir. It's Dave Baldwin again. Yeah, so as you know, Davis, the duty statuses are tremendously complicated. So we do have Title 10 people that you mentioned. We have our Type 1 hand crews that are on duty year round are on Title 32. We're actually paying them out of a mission assignment from FEMA for COVID response. The other troops that we have in the main are on state active duty. And then even then there's a delineation between those who are actively engaged in fire suppression, get fire pay, which is the regular pay plus a bump for hazardous duty, whereas the security force people are just drawing their regular state active duty pay, which in California comports exactly to what your paying allowances would be if you were in Title 32 or on a Title 10 status. In terms of risk and benefits or coverage if you're injured, in California, we have a state compensation insurance fund that covers injuries and costs of injuries incurred if a soldier or airman gets hurt out fighting a fire, and then provides for long-term care. It is by no means as comprehensive a coverage as what you would get through the VA. So if you're on Title 32 and you get injured and you become 100% disabled, those benefits are far greater than what the state provides. So it is an issue, but it's one of the things, as you know, we have to deal with operating in a state status versus a federal status.
Yes, and in Louisiana, we're very similar to California, how we operate. Our pay and benefits, mirror that of an active duty person. But the key point is some of the benefits aren't the same. As with California, Louisiana has a workers' compensation insurance that would cover any injury or illness that happens. But there is a benefits difference with the VA and with health insurance that would come with Title 32. Being that it's a short duration event normally for us, those are things that we deal with. But it's what we have to work with right now.
And David, if I could add one last thing is also there's been a lot of significant work over the past couple of years on duty status reform. Because when you look at the number of various statuses that service members could be in, and there was well over 20 of those, and there's been a significant effort within the Department of Defense to reduce that down to 8 duty statuses. That didn't make it through the legislative cycle this year, but I think it'll be a priority next year. And now this is not specific to state active duty, but it really addresses a lot of those disparities that we've seen between folks in a different duty status in terms of Title 32 or Title 10 that are working side by side. And the intent there is to make sure that they have equal benefits when we're asking them to do equal duties. Over.
Sir, thank you very much. And thank you to the members of the media for joining us. We are almost up on our time. I'd like to turn things back over to General Hokanson for closing comments.
Hey, great. Thank you, Wayne. And folks, for all those that were able to join us today, thank you very much for doing this. And what we tried to highlight is just really the diversity of missions that our National Guard faces every day. And both Lee and Dave, their folks are doing incredible work. And when you look at John, Chuck, and Greg, they're really representative of leaders performing a lot of these duties or supervising it. And, they're doing a lot of great works out there. But all of this, everything they're able to do is because our nation has invested in the manning, training, and equipping of those units to fight and win our nation's wars. And that gives us the capability to do this. And a lot of times we have to remind folks that the National Guard does exist for their federal warfight mission. And then our ability to help the communities is just a great thing that we can do because we have that capability. But please, if you have questions beyond today, I know this is a short amount of time, but our public affairs team can reach out to anyone and get you in touch with folks actually, at this case, at the point of that hurricane response or at the point of wildfire response, to get you any information or answer any questions that you would like. But once again, thanks for your time today. It was a pleasure speaking with all of you. And I know some folks are going to be able to stay a little bit longer, so I'll hand it back over to them.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, some of our folks are going to be able to stay on a little bit longer if we have additional questions from media. But I do know that most of them do have to get back out to the missions. So if there's any last minute questions for our folks remaining, I believe we have the California's maybe staying online. All right, sir. I don't know that we have any additional questions at this time. I appreciate you joining us. And for the rest of the media, if you have follow-up questions after this, please feel free to reach out to us by phone or by email, and we'll do our best to try to get them answered. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne.